The Planet of the Apes franchise turned 60 last year, if you assume it started as the 1963 book La Planète des Singes, translated from French as Planet of the Apes. Written by Pierre Boulle, the novel sees two astronauts intercept a manuscript from a man named Ulysses, a human who crash lands on a planet where apes act just like humans, with speech, clothes, and political structures, while humans are non-verbal and are treated like animals. Ulysses is examined by two chimpanzee scientists, Zira and Cornelius, and is granted the prestige on the basis of his speech and intelligence. He then flees the planet with his non-verbal wife Nova and their child, Sirius, only to find that Earth has been similarly taken over by apes. The two astronauts who intercepted the manuscript discard it as rubbish, as they are chimpanzees and cannot believe talking humans exist. While never adapted word for word, it is clear how this novel was taken and turned into the 1968 Hollywood film Planet of the Apes. Written by Rod Serling and Michael Wilson, directed by Franklin J. Schaffner, and starring Kim Hunter, Roddy McDowall, and Charlton Heston as Zira, Cornelius, and Captain Taylor, respectively. So, right off the bat, they changed the main character's name to Taylor. As for the rest of the film, the plot is similar. However, there is no framing sequence, we simply follow Taylor as he lands on the planet and interacts with the apes. He also only flees the city with Nova instead of the planet, and isn't there long enough to have a kid. The end is also different, with Taylor learning that he's actually been on Earth the whole time. This film will be followed with a sequel 2 years later, 1970's Beneath the Planet of the Apes. Written by Paul Den and directed by Ted Post, it stars a new astronaut, Brent, played by James Franciscus, as he lands on the Planet of the Apes shortly after the end of the previous film. He finds an underground city of psychic humans, for some reason, who use an Alpha-Omega nuclear bomb to blow up the Earth. Humans are the real bastards. There are 3 more sequels, though, in 1971, 72, and 73, all written by Den. The first, Escape from the Planet of the Apes, sees Zira and Cornelius escape back to the 1970s, where they tell people how apes rule the Earth and humanity destroys it. They then have a kid right before being killed by the military. Conquest of the Planet of the Apes follows their kid, Caesar, played by Roddy McDowall, as he leads an ape revolution against their human overlords. Finally, Battle for the Planet of the Apes features the beginning of Caesar's new ape civilization, and humanity's place in it as Caesar's village battles the remnants of humanity over shared fear and prejudice. It's a solid trilogy that ties back to the first 2 films nicely, and ties together the entire original quintology. Together, they establish the full timeline of the Planet of the Apes, from birth to death. Admittedly, the middle 3 films aren't great, but Conquest is an interesting look at the ape takeover, and does a great job setting up Battle. This original quintology will be followed up by 2 TV shows, a 1-season live-action series simply titled Planet of the Apes that aired in 1974, and an animated series called Return to the Planet of the Apes that aired in 1975. Both feature even more astronauts arriving in the future ape civilization, further expanding on the world. The live-action show was also edited into 5 movies, encompassing most of the episodes. Aside from some comic books, the Planet of the Apes would lay dormant until 2001, when a reboot starring Mark Wahlberg and directed by Tim Burton was released. Wahlberg plays Leo Davison, an astronaut who follows his pet chimpanzee Pericles into a time vortex and winds up on a planet ruled by incredibly human-like apes, closer to a modern-day society like that depicted in the novel versus the original film. Also like the novel, Davison eventually escapes back to Earth, finding that it too has become a planet of apes. Unlike the other films, this one has no sequel, standing alone in its continuity. It would take another decade for the Planet of the Apes to be rebooted, but instead of a remake of the original film and novel, this film, Rise of the Planet of the Apes, is more of a loose adaptation of Conquest. Written by Rick Jaffa and Amanda Silver, directed by Rupert Wyatt, and starring Andy Serkis as the ape Caesar and James Franco as its caretaker Will, the film follows Caesar as he gets infected with a man-made virus that makes him more intelligent and gives him the ability to speak. Once more apes get intelligent as well, Caesar leads them into the woods to live as their own tribe, separate from humanity. This film's sequel, 2014's Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, picks up a few years later, directed by Matt Reeves with the same scriptwriters, and is a loose adaptation of Battle. The virus that made apes intelligent also made humans simple-minded and unable to speak, while the remaining humans clash with the apes about supplies and borders. Ultimately, aggressive actions on both sides lead to a battle against Caesar's will that ends with the apes on top. This trilogy of films concludes with 2017's War for the Planet of the Apes, another loose adaptation of Battle by the same team. Instead of ragtag survivors, Caesar's clan is forced to fight a group of soldiers led by Woody Harrelson's Colonel, ending with Caesar leading his people to true freedom. It's a really well-made trilogy showing the, rise of the Planet of the Apes, alongside Caesar's personal journey. Another film set in the same universe will be released 7 years later in 2024, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, written by Josh Freeman and directed by Wes Ball. Set 300 years after war, this loose remake of the original film sees Owen Teague's chimpanzee Noah team up with Peter Macon's Raka and Freya Allen's mute human Nova to save his clan from Kevin Durant's tyrannical King Proximus. The big twist to this loose remake is that Nova can actually talk, a member of a group of humans that survived the virus, and she and Proximus both want access to a vault containing advanced human tech from the before times. It works really well as a standalone sequel, while also setting up many avenues for future films. And that's the complete audiovisual Planet of the Apes franchise, all starting off from one book in 1963 and now comprises a quintology with 2 sequel shows, a standalone remake, and a reboot trilogy with its own standalone sequel, and I don't see it slowing down anytime soon. Hopefully this guide helps you understand the history of the franchise. I've been Raven Try, and thanks for watching.